Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Dub, the all everything WCFHL podcast, where we talk about hot topics, news, gossip, and bring you the very best. This podcast has been brought to you from some great companies in the past. However, now we've been brought to you by the Winking Lizard Tavern with only over 10 locations serving Ohio. It's your place to eat, relax, and enjoy the WCFHL. Uh, I'm here. I'm Andy McDonald, and I'm joined by Jim Dowd. It's been a while since we spoke. And since that time, we've actually got a new team here in the WFHL. We've got the Seattle Kraken. I know, Jim, you spent a lot of time up there in Seattle. Must be nice to visit your old stomping grounds. How do you feel about that?
Well, let me tell you, I really do enjoy getting to go back home, see the old friends, run with the old crew. I won't say my wife loves it too much, but, only a couple times a year here and there, maybe the playoffs. But been a great thing to get back there. Also the new GM of Seattle, I guess we can't really call him new anymore, doing a great job with that team, accumulating assets, making good trades, picking up draft picks. So really welcome addition to the league, both for my vacation and, from the GM standpoint as well.
Absolutely,
Now,
he's a great GM there. I like what he's done so far.
yeah, I will agree. And I got to say, we made a lot of plans, talked a lot, did a lot of prep work for this podcast, like we always do. But, then Mike Marsh had to come in and just throw a wrench right into the middle of it all with this huge trade, getting to the top of the draft, potentially to select Connor Bedard. You'd think that's who he's going to select, but you never know some of these WCFHL GMs. What were your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, that was an interesting move. Certainly gave up a lot of stuff there, moving that way. But you never know. You kind of get the first kick at the can, getting number one. You get to be able to pick your own guy, kind of lay a claim. Always fun to be picking first. I think the Blues have picked first maybe once before. I believe it was maybe Eric Johnson they'd selected a couple of years ago. So certainly hoping this one goes a little bit better than that. That said, it'd be interesting to see who he takes here at number one now. You got to think it's going to be Bedard, but I mean, I was talking to the Mike Marsh there the other day, and felt he was at the number three pick, and couldn't stop talking about this right-handed defenseman, Reinbacher, and also. It'll be interesting to see if he still goes number one. Maybe could be Michkov going in number one, or one of the big centers there. So. Uh, not too sure. You never do know. A little bit of a wild card. What about you? Who do you think will go number one and the trade and the rest of the time, kind of top five? What do you think of it?
Well, I'll tell you, if Bedard doesn't go number one, I'll be shocked. I mean, wouldn't be the first time we see a departure from the norm in the dub here, but it'd be pretty surprising for a prospect like this, not to go number one. I mean, however, you never know these WCFHL GMs. They're willing to buck tradition sometimes, buck the trends. We had a few years ago, Tim out in Buffalo picking Marco Rossi over Tim Stutzle, and and see how that's going so far. I don't know if you'd say it's great, but I bet Tim would stand by that pick if you got him in a room and had a real conversation with him about it. But just a great example of some of the things that can happen at the top end of the draft. These GMs, they're not afraid to step out for their players and do it differently than they do it out in the big old NHL there. As far as that top
now,
five,
Jim, I got to stop you there. Because I do think now that pick I'd imagine would have been quite analytically oriented. So yeah, I hear you call that one out. This is one of the things. They're on the cutting edge of things up there in Buffalo. So
well,
so
he had
sometimes
drafts
that's
on it. I'll tell you, he had drafts on it.
Yeah, that certainly. Yeah, there'd be graphs. There'd be a big war room. It's the type of things that oftentimes you and I kind of brought up in the previous generation. We might not really understand here. So, and we want to make sure we're giving enough credit here to Tim. With the selection stuff and all that one might have been a miss, but certainly would have been kind of analytically oriented and well depicted. Yeah. So, anyway, continue.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, a lot of the GMs out there are still doing it by feel. Not all of them are looking at those numbers. Some of them are. It's a new generation in the league now, and kind of a different way of doing things. And you see that reflected in some of our picks and trades and things like that. So interesting when the worlds collide there. Now, as far as the rest of that top five, we just had Greg Domino trading in to that number 5 spot. moving up from the number 8. That's a big move. There's a lot of good guys available right around there. Who's it going to be? You know, we don't know who's going to fall, who's going to go up. Where's Michkov going to go? I think that's going to make a big difference here. I could see Michkov going second. Could see him going third. I highly doubt he drops past the 5th pick, but you just never know these days. So, you know, if you see Michkov go high, that also means a couple more guys are dropping. You know, you see Fantilli, Smith, Carlson all drop down a pick or two. So very exciting, though, right up there at the top of the draft. And, you know, we'll see. There could be more trades to come as well. You know, wouldn't be the first time that someone's made a last minute or night before trade into that top spot or top area. You know, I feel like Mike's going to hold on to that number 1 pick, but everything else might be available. You know, we've seen some GMs back in those lower spots, 7 and 9, looking to trade out maybe. So some movement still to come. And I think one thing's for sure, that top 5 is going to look different than it did in the NHL draft.
I would say so. I think there's going to be a fair bit of movement, even maybe with teams, and then a little bit a different order. I'd say it'd be different. I mean, you could even see Mishkov going as early as 2. With Elias there selecting with the 2nd pick. You know, with the great lottery result, I think he, you know, who knows, he might look to shake it up right away. Also like the moves, you know, that Greg made with David Yochov. I think it was a great trade for everybody, and I know. You know, analytically, you know, we talked about the kind of the Rossi pick and that, but I think that top 5 selection for the Flyers GM for Greg Domino there, it very well might have been driven just knowing the guy. It's just, you know, get in there, get your pick in early, get it in before you're too drunk. Make sure that you're getting the right name in. I think that might be a big factor. So there's a lot of different things motivating these WCFHL GMs moves. You know, and you know, if we talk about different rumors and different things going on, focusing outside of just the top 5, I think Tanner Aldridge might be looking to move. Maybe, I mean, he's made some really nice moves since he joined the WCHL that I've seen, and you know, who knows, could be looking to trade out of that top 10. Maybe even trade up. We're talking about who can come in and try to shake up the order on draft day. That might be an option. He's got a lot of assets up there in Washington.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I mean, you know, it's also going to fall on who goes where, right? All of a sudden, the guy's available at 3 or 4 or 6 that you didn't think was going to be available, and you see teams all of a sudden jumping in, rushing to get up to that pick. So it's going to be an exciting day, that's for sure. You know, pick distribution throughout the league is interesting. As was pointed out, something like 60% of the picks are no longer with their original team. So there's lots of movement, as there always is. Teams accumulating draft picks. You've seen Chicago go out and get a bunch of picks after the season ended. Got their usual suspects with those huge, you know, numbers of picks, and then those guys that are competing up at the top with barely anything in the pick coffers. So, yeah, going to be real interesting to see, and I expect some big moves on draft day.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just think of big moves, it'd be, and a number of moves, it'd be consistent with what we've seen so far in the offseason. I mean, geez, Jim, you know, back in our day, you know, you're lucky if you see 10 to 15 trades, and I think there's been 55 trades there so far in the offseason. Not sure if there's anything else you want to talk there in the draft, maybe in the later rounds or that, or if you want to maybe just bring us in and get us a little bit back up to speed on what some of this action's been going on so far during this WCHL offseason.
Yeah, well, there's been so many big moves. Yeah, you're at 55 trades already, more to come. Teams reshaping themselves a little bit. You see a lot of big names out there, you know, on the trade market, on the trade block right now. So likely more moves like that to come as well. One of the biggest moves we've seen is, you know, Matt out in Minnesota, finally picking up Kaprizov, hooking him up with Eriksson Ek, kind of the dream, the dream of the Wild there.
I'd say I saw that one. I said there must be something in the water there in Minnesota. You know, Levine, he's really keen. You know, he really knows his hydration, his fluids. He's really on it. I said, oh, geez, he's got to be drinking something special there, making all these trades, building up such a great team in Minnesota. And I heard the same
No
kind of
doubt.
Blackhawks might be looking for a rebuild. You heard any rumblings coming out of Chicago?
A little bit. I mean, you know, the past couple of years, you know, have been a big disappointment for the Blackhawks and their GM. They, you know, kind of blew up their rebuild, brought in a lot of stars, and really haven't had much playoff success. Kind of getting beaten up by the other Central Division contenders. And now you do hear names talked about on that Chicago roster. You hear people talking about Sidney Crosby, about Victor Hedman, Marner, Toffoli.
Wow.
McAvoy you don't hear about too much, but a lot of guys being discussed. Darcy Quimper's done a lot of interest as well. So wouldn't be surprised to see the Blackhawks make some moves. So, to tear down a roster like that without ever really having any playoff success would be a pretty big organizational failure. So we'll have to see where that goes. We know Connor Williams had a lot of success here in the past, not so much in the recent seasons. So, maybe he needs to get up a little more on those analytics and a little more off that trading and drafting by feel.
Yeah, well, it seems to have brought him some success in the past. He's gotten meant to many a cup finals and things like that. A little bit of a roller coaster this year, and with kind of going all in, all out, that type of thing. So we'll see where it ends up. But a lengthy block there for Chicago. I'm not sure, I know there were some other rumors, maybe the Avalanche, another team that might be looking to do a little bit of a roller coaster. We've seen James Love, be very competitive for the last more than a decade now, and he's posting about kind of moving big name players. Is it a crisis of confidence in Colorado, do you think, or is he just looking to freshen things up?
Well, it's one of those things. It's a tough question, and I mean, gosh, when was GM James not competitive? That's what I want to know. I can't think of a time. It seems like the distant past. But yeah, I mean, similar to Chicago and some of the other big Western Conference contenders, they've got this roster full of talent, big guns. They've cleaned out all their prospects and picks, and they're just not making it over, to the precipice there, not making it into any finals appearances, not making any finals victories. So you see names like, Ovechkin goes out, he puts Stamkos on the block, things like that. Some veterans, of course, you're maybe looking to move on from those guys and get a little younger. But then you hear names like Point and the big one, McKinnon. You hear names like that start to come out, and that could be a huge organizational shift in direction. So, James definitely has the assets, to pick up and either tear things down and then put in a nice fast rebuild full of great young players and picks, or maybe he will just try to even things out a little bit, make some swaps and stay in contention.
Absolutely. I mean, if his desire is to stay in contention, I think he's certainly got the horses, and like I said, he could strip it down and yeah, have the stable would be full, in a different way, if you don't mind me saying. I mean, this guy, he's got quite the team, quite the organization. But it'd be interesting to see if he wants to make these drastic changes. He wants to shake it up and give it a go. He's having a pretty competitive landscape over there in the Western Conference. So we'll see, kind of see what he ends up doing. But I know, some other big names you mentioned, some, Ovechkin and if we're going back in that generation, Malkin, Crosby. You heard about those being on the go. Where do you think they might end up?
That's true. Definitely some big names there, and definitely heard a few rumblings about maybe one or both of those guys heading back to Pittsburgh, trying to make a last run there. The Pens, they've got a real deep roster. They've got a lot of talent there to build around with Hughes and Hischier and Dougie Hamilton and everybody on that team. So, I mean, maybe they will try to add one of those aging stars or aging superstars to kind of put them right over the top there. So, Penguins, I wouldn't be surprised to see push in on either of those guys, or even go for somebody like McKinnon or somebody that we see who may move from Colorado or another one of those Western Conference contenders.
Could be something that we see on draft day. As if we weren't going to have enough action. Give the commissioner there something else to keep an eye on. But yeah, certainly interesting stuff. One thing that we, with all the trade action going on, yet to see a trade from the recently returned John Marsh, Calgary Flames GM, kind of come back and gonna, pull out the life preserver and look to rescue that franchise, just from, they were a little rudderless there, to keep the nautical references going. I mean, they're, it's nice to see them back under his stewardship.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I would agree with you. It's a big surprise to not see him active, but maybe he's just feeling things out, getting a feeling for the league. He's gone for a number of years, so got some of the old guard is still here. Some of the people he's negotiated, traded a lot with, played against a lot, but there's a lot of new guys in the league that John has not been around. So maybe he's just taking it slow, trying to kind of get his feet under him, get through this draft, kind of get a little bit more ready for the season, see what his team feels like before he makes the move. But I imagine when he starts making those moves, it won't stop, and I'd be shocked not to see Calgary back in contention in the next 2-3 seasons here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first gut reaction would probably stay reeling from the retirement from Nicholas Lidstrom. Still, I know he's backbone of many of those Calgary Flames teams. Lidstrom, Bergeron. You think about those great teams that the Flames had back then. Joe Pavelski. Some of them still in the league. Bergeron recently retired. I think he's just getting reacclimated to the landscape, like you said. Maybe a few new people, but being smart. Veteran move, play it slow and kind of see how it comes. So. Former champion of the WCFHL, of course, many cup finalists, and kind of speaking of champions, I guess, right? Might as well jump right into it. How about that Cole Richardson, right? 3 on the trot, three in a row. Just dominant performance from the Predators and Cole Richardson.
Pretty incredible. I mean, what an accomplishment. 3 in a row. Something that I don't know if we ever would have predicted that anyone could do that in the dub. So that's such a talented squad. And I mean, just, taking other teams apart in the playoffs. Barely been tested, once or twice tested over the last 3 years, but not really. And, when you've got David, Kucherov, all those great players on that team, I mean, there's so many. It's too many to even name. It's not shocking to see him up at the top, but very shocking to see 3 straight cup victories, especially coming out of that tough Central Division. Central Division has not been too tough for Cole during the playoffs. So he has been a buzzsaw. And, coming into this season as well, looking to contend, looking to make big moves, looking to maybe get that 4th one. I mean, why not try for it? You're at the top. Most of his players, even the veterans, are not aging out. So, that team could be dominant and we could see cup wins or at least cup appearances. I wouldn't be surprised to see him at least in the finals or the conference finals next 2-3 more seasons.
Absolutely. He's certainly still got a lot of runway there. And you look at McDavid, he's only around that 26, 27 age. And sends a shiver up your spine there if you're a GM there in the Central Division. He's, when's this guy going to let us be? He's just tormenting other GMs. I mean, it's been tremendous. So with that and the amount of moves that he's made, even across the last 3 years, just to keep the team that dominant, right? It's not kind of like a set it and forget it type thing. It's very active, in terms of this kind of strategy trying to build up the team. And so be interesting to see how it'll make up for the eventual loss of Bergeron and all that. It's going to be big. He's a big key player, but solid squad, and be interested to see how he stays on top of it.
Yeah, I'll agree. And to think, I mean, now we've got St. Louis likely bringing in Bedard. We're going to have Bedard and McDavid. Both playing in that same division. I've got Crosby in that division already. It's a division just filled with superstar players. And, a lot of those players are playing in Nashville. And, loss of Bergeron is going to be a big one, but I have 100% confidence that Cole is going to find the player to fill that hole when that does come. He's got one more season out of Bergie, and then he'll be shuffling off. So, Cole's going to be hoping for one more big season out of him. But I have no doubt that he'll find a replacement, when the time does come. So wouldn't be surprised again to see this run continue. Just very impressive. All props go to Cole. All GMs hate him, and that's a good place to be. When you're a GM, everyone else is mad at you and annoyed and doesn't want you to see you in the playoffs. It doesn't get much better than that.
Well, it's kind of funny. We have this conversation and we talk about it. We're talking about James Love, the success he's had, getting through to the finals and everything, and in previous years, and then to the conference finals year after year, and Cole Richardson 3 straight. Oh, we haven't even talked about the Arizona Coyotes and barely about Minnesota Wild. These are 2 teams, top 2 in the league, and really strong teams, strong franchises, everything, good management. I mean, that's a killer division. No wonder there's some rebuilding teams in there, but or no wonder the Blackhawks kind of want to head for the hills. But it's going to be really dogfight next year. So it might be tough for the Predators, but it's going to be tough. But Pacific Division, I think, might end up looking a little bit easier on paper anyway. Still some really strong teams there. How do you feel about both chances? I mean, is this going to be the year?
Well, I think as commentators, people who've watched this league, who've been involved for a long time, everyone is always rooting for Bo to kind of finally break through, make the finals, win the finals. this could be the year. Every year could be the year right now for this Kings roster. Great goaltending, great players up front, solid defense. Sticking with those NHL Kings and Kopitar and Doty and all the great players on that roster. Now, I think it's tough too when everyone's rooting for you. Can be a little bit difficult when you don't come through. So I think everyone really feels for him there. I would love to see the Kings contend. I would love to see the Kings in the finals. I would love to see the Kings win the finals. Now, can they do it? That's another thing. The Western Conference is so tough. The top of the Eastern Conference is very hard as well. No doubt about the fact that they'll be in the fight. Kings are going to be a playoff team, as nearly they always are. And they'll have my support when they get there. What do you think about their chances?
Well, you always gotta like their chances. He's gonna be in the fight, right? And you just hope that the Central beats up on each other and he can be there. You still get some nice assets. Could this be the year that Bo really makes a push and says, you know what? I got a great franchise, everything like that. But if I really want to go swinging in the playoffs against these teams, look at the Predators. Look at the Predators draft picks. They got an empty draft in this draft. Look at Colorado. He's got 1/5. So you look at these teams, and Bo. Meanwhile, he's got a pretty nice looking day set out, for this Saturday. So, sometimes it's tough to swing with these heavy hitters if you're not willing to really mortgage the future. So we'll see if he does. Certainly, like you said, everybody's going to be cheering for him. I know. I spent a lot of time with him down the years, just him being the commissioner, and great guy. And we just want to hope the best for him in the organization. But it would be interesting to see how it's fun to see how it ends up. But speaking of the league and the commissioner and all, some recent rule changes going on here. How do you feel about the rule changes? Salary floor and some of the different stuff that we've seen and any changes that you'd like to see come through, Jim?
Yeah, well, change is always interesting. I mean, change is one of the only constants in life, and yet everyone hates change, as we've seen, and as we always see when there's rule changes. You've got people up near the top of that salary cap that are bucking against this 3% increase. Talking about penalties for the teams below, all these things. We've all seen the discussions in the media, heard the chatter about it. Now, I get it. We need more money in the league. The league, needs to make sure teams can hit that salary floor. But I can see both sides. You can see from the the teams that are the haves, the teams that always make the playoffs, the teams that have all the best players, the teams that make all the money. They see that this is kind of a penalty on them for their success. We've already seen the value of cash move to almost nothing. That used to be a huge negotiating piece for the teams that were the haves, the teams that made all the money. And so I can see why people feel a little bit like that. But at the same time, you've got to adjust. Bo used a great example of Cole himself adjusting to rule changes a few years ago, fighting through, now being a 3-time champion. So in the end, no matter what we think, these changes have been made. Hopefully
Absolutely.
they are for the good of the league. And go ahead.
No, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's I think certainly just more in the interest of the league, and you raise a good point about Cole fighting through them. I think what we're seeing here is fundamentally, there's the floors going up, there's more money in the league. More money in the league, more money for everyone. You know what they say? More money, more problems. It's really more money, more issues for some of these teams. Is it going to be enough? Is it not going to be enough? The penalty is going to increase. If you don't hit that cap floor, we're talking about kind of a forfeit and draft picks type thing, right? So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be really really be able to lay a landmark down, make things a little bit more serious in terms of some of this cap management, and maybe some further changes to the financial systems and things like that. So I'll hold my breath here on how it comes down, but I've loved the improvements that have come through so far.
Yeah, I will agree with you there. And, big one too, being able to trade the retired players' cap hits. That's big. That'll be big for the haves and for the have-nots in the coming season. So we'll have to see what happens with some of these big contracts and guys retiring, but a very interesting wrinkle and another thing to use the trade chip both ways. So should bring some interest in these next few years.
Certainly in some innovative stuff, innovative thinking. I know one of the other ones that is looked up is, you see this one recently with the Kings and the Blues. Turns out these these third round picks are now second round picks. So I don't know. It's some interesting stuff going on. We'll see how that one's resolved. Not sure. Could get a little bit hairy, but I hear it's being offered up for draft research, etc. That's all that's happening in the general chat. They say don't take what happens in the general chat too seriously, I guess. But what do you think about that general chat amongst these GMs? What do you think about it? I mean, for me, you can say you want about the WCHL on ice product. I think it's fantastic. It's fast, entertaining. Lots of trades. But what I've grown to love is really the political commentary. That goes along with it. I mean, these guys, these GMs, they really know their stuff. They've got some really heady opinions. What do you think there, Jim?
I mean, I'm going to agree with you there. It's one of the greatest things about being a fan, being a media member of a league like this, is getting to see inside the lives and the thoughts of these GMs, whether it be politics, whether it be the NFL, whether it be COVID, which I guess you could call politics for some people. Whatever it is, these people have opinions. They're not afraid to put them out there. And, strong-headed, strong opinions, a lot of knowledge, depth of knowledge, both about hockey, about social issues, about political issues. You just love to see it. You love to see that exposure. You love to see people being willing to share like that in front of the media and the world and everybody. And I can only say that it's added a great deal of joy to my day-to-day life, and I can tell that it has for you as well.
Oh, I'll tell you what, nothing I love more when I'm bumped up against the deadline, and you're kind of sitting there, kind of racking your brain trying to think about how you're going to end up doing an article, and then you see two of these GMs going after each other. Nothing easier. You get to kind of just stretch down. I just pull out a nice little bottle of wine, pop a bottle of wine, read through a few, and then I get to use that as the basis there. It makes my job easier, just as a member of the media. So I certainly love it. It's been a really great addition. Keeps things rolling. But it's a lot of stuff too. It's not just these jokes, not just these entertaining stuff or things that we can use to. It's a lot of advice too. I'm seeing a lot of new fathers and that around the WHL. A little bit of fatherhood advice going. We're going to have a fatherhood corner as part of the WCHL Inside the Dub podcast coming up next, Jim. What do you think?
I mean, I'll agree with you. There's fathers of all ages, older fathers, younger fathers, newer fathers. It's really interesting to see, something that we've seen over the years, of course. This year we've got Dylan Darby there in Toronto, working on getting ready for the draft. Trying to get his family off his back, if we can speak plainly, so we can get a little time. And you see him getting great advice from Greg Domino. Just a master of the craft. I mean, we all remember when Greg shotgunned a beer on video in front of his kids at a draft a few years ago. So who better to take advice from on how to really concentrate on what's important? And yes, Fatherhood Corner. I think we might have to make that a thing here soon.
Certainly. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got up his sleeve here for us today. This year around, it's going to be really great. I feel that way about the draft generally, but just you think about the Flyers and just the quantity of picks that they got there, it's going to be great. He's a team that's been able to kind of maintain that competitive edge, but still pick up the picks and have it that stable all at the same time too. It's been a great thing. What do you think, though? We got the draft coming up shortly after that. We're gonna have free agency. Everybody's got their signings and everything like that. But next season, I mean, we're already thinking about it. Training camp's just around the corner. Any predictions for next season, Jim?
Well, I mean, it's tough not to predict another year of Cole. We saw all the Thanos memes last year in the general chat, and if that holds true, there's 5 fingers on the hand, and he's only at 3 so far. So. I mean, it's hard for me not to predict Cole in the finals, winning the finals. Again, I'd love to see Bo up there. Let me say this: the Kings, Predators conference finals. I'll leave a finals prediction out. We'll get that done a little later in the year. And then on the Eastern side, I'm going to say Rangers, Flyers in the conference finals, and then we'll hash out what happens in the Stanley Cup a little while after that. How about yourself?
Oh, I really like that. It's a great shout. I mean, Lucas, again, just feverish general management, just really strong asset management. Knows his hockey, right? So he's he's a really strong GM out there. And you think about that Rangers team, it's just again one of these things where it's just always competitive. It moves me a little bit tighter last year, but he just had full confidence to get them right back up there. So I like that pick. Another one out there is Peter Beaton. Is always a threat, right? And out in Long Island. Although I got to go with the Habs here. Coming from the division, I know David Rayfuse kind of look for some picks. He's always around. He's always kind of hanging around. A cup winner as well. Just recent coaching change, I believe, in Montreal, or at least proposed coaching change. I think Marty St. Louis might be coming in there, and Ducharme's getting the heave ho. So could be just what they need to freshen things up and help take them to the next level. So kind of like that. And like I said, with you can't really ever go against the Cole out there in the West. But I'm gonna go. I'll say Flyers and sorry, not Habs and Kings. So we'll take it back maybe 30 years later here. So we'll do that and see how it goes, right? I mean, I think that's going to be really exciting, and hopefully we get a lot of interesting players entering the league, and anyway, it'll be interesting to see from this draft, just who comes through, what the impact they can have. If Bedard's enough to keep the Blues out of the basement again. A lot of questions.
Well, soon there will be some answers coming, and you are right. Draft coming up, one of the most exciting days of the year, maybe the most exciting, the most beloved day of the year for the Dub, for its GMs, for its fans, for its media. Free agency right around the corner, and then the season will be upon us. So much more to come. Yes, decisions to be made, and answers to be heard soon.
Absolutely. That's why we do this job. We don't know what's coming around next, but boy, do we enjoy every minute. And what we're saying, that I got to tell you, Jim, enjoyed this with you. Really hoping we can get together again soon. I know there's a lot to talk about. We dip into some of the free agency that'll be coming up. Go dipping a little bit more about some of the rule changes. No doubt more trades, draft recap. A lot of stuff we can talk about, Jim. We want to get on Inside the Dub soon, and let's see what we can put together. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Now, I'll tell you, my rankings here, I do this job first for the money, second for the love of the league, and then you're a distant third, getting the banter back and forth with you. So let's just make sure that's clear. The money's number one for me. If that stuff's coming in, you're not getting any more of these. However, I do hope that we can get one out there soon, and let's just make it a little bit sooner than last time around.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I might have been 5-6 years since the last one, Jim. So we'll see. I mean, Winking Lizard came through this time around. Love what they do there. They got a really, really great. You've ever had one of those Hawaiian burgers there with the onion, with the pineapple on it? It's lovely. It's really nice. That, and they got a lot of local Ohio beers. So you chuck one of those down. Whenever I go watch the Jackets, I always make sure I dip on into the Winking Lizard. So they're sponsoring us here, and if we can get a little bit more of that, get the money in, get that motivation number one for you. How about that?
I love that idea, and maybe we'll meet up there after the draft for a bite and a brew.
Sounds good. Sounds great. I'll look forward to it, and we'll get our next podcast up there sooner than the last. So get everybody to check back to the Inside the WFHL channel here, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. All the best to everyone at the draft.
You as well. Thanks, everybody.